Whitney Young football is on the air. Hey everybody, how you doing? We're here on a windy, slightly chilly evening at Fritz Ballard Field at Lane Tech Stadium with the Taft Eagles taking on the Whitney Young Dolphins. I'm Barry Newman, joined tonight by Scott Clayton on the call and Jane Hu on the camera. We're hoping that the rain holds off tonight. We've got the live stream equipment all filled up with a bunch of garbage bags. We've got our umbrellas in tow. Hopefully that holds off, and hopefully we get the Dolphins back on the win side tonight. So Taft comes in here, and we'll talk about Taft throughout the course of the evening. They're a tough team. Their record maybe doesn't indicate it as much. They come in tonight at 2-5. Started out the season with actually their 5 losses. So they lost to Glenbrook North 16-14. Lost to Grant by 4 points, 24-20. Then to Kenwood. So Kenwood, one of the powers over on the Red South Conference. They lost to Kenwood 25-7. Lost to Lane Tech 16-6, so that was one of those eye-opening games on both sides of the ball. Lane Tech, that was a big signature win for them. And then for Taft, it was sort of the wake-up call of like, well, not a big deal to drop some of those early season games against some suburban powers against a team like Kenwood. But to lose to Lane Tech, that was a big eye-opener for everybody. Then they had to face Phillips, who we know is a very tough team and historically has been on the top end of this conference. They lost a tough game 12-6. So there they had those 5 losses facing them, even though they had played well, just didn't have the right circumstances. Then they came on 2-game winning streak, so they enter here after beating Westinghouse 23-6 and Clark 29-0 last week. So I had a chance to catch up with Coach Finger a couple days ago, and let me cue this up here, and I'll let you all at home listen to what Coach Finger had to say about today's game. Here we go.
I'm here with Coach Daniel Finger of the Whitney Young Dolphins. Coach Finger, coming off a tough week against Westinghouse. We just mentioned you take a play or two this year. We definitely have 2 more wins. If you look back at Clark and at Westinghouse, throw in a couple plays against Lane, we're looking at 4-3. But unfortunately, that's not the case. So, what are your thoughts after last week?
You know, we just didn't do a good enough job finishing, and you know, I didn't do a good enough job scripting that into practice, that week, and sort of coaching that as we were leading up to that game. You know, a lot of really, really good things. In the game last week, you saw a couple of guys step up in new situations. Chase Green and Jacob Mraz especially played great. But we just didn't finish the job. And so that's been something we're working on at practice this week and making sure that we're staying sharp and getting off to that good start like we did, but really emphasizing finishing.
Yeah. So now we move on to Taft, and a historic program, a team that played us really tough last year. Looking at it, they bring a lot on both sides of the ball. Some linemen that are going to be definitely playing at the next level. Some other talent guys. What are you thinking about looking at Taft both on the offense and defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, they're a tough team. 77. Their lineman is a great player. He's one of the best in the city, and it's going to be a fun challenge for our D lineman, especially against him. But they've got an athletic quarterback, but who definitely has some wheels too, which is something we struggled with last week. Being totally gap sound and everything, and so we're harping on staying home and making sure we're not letting him get vertical on us because he did hurt us last year with that, as well as us struggling with that last week. So, and then defensively, they're going to play a pretty similar defense to us. A lot of quarters coverage, a lot of cover 2, some man, all stuff that we're excited to work against. And then we're going to give them something defensively that we haven't shown all year, that we've been saving up, and personnel quandaries have got us there. So we're going to play with 3 down linemen and give them something they haven't seen before, which is exciting for us as coaches, and should keep them on their heels at least in the first half.
All right, sounds good. Good luck, Coach. Go Dolphins.
Thank you. Go Dolphins.
All right, that was Coach Finger. Scott, your thoughts? We've got about 13 minutes before we kick off here, so we've got a little bit more on our pregame show than usual.
Well, he confirmed a rumor that I heard outside the gate, and so I think it'll be interesting to see the 3-3 defensive alignment.
Yeah, and one of the things he noted on that, and I think some of it is to give a different look. I think another element of that also is to get your athletic guys on the field.
I agree.
So I think that'll be interesting for us to watch. I think he mentioned Coach Finger mentioned 77. So 77 is Gores Krupa, who was a first-team All-City offensive lineman last year. Also a city champion in wrestling and an all-state wrestler. He has a number of Division I offers. He's got an offer from Dayton. He's got an offer from McKendree. He's got an offer from St. Thomas, as well as Northern Michigan. I think his brother plays at Northern Michigan. So he's a guy that both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball, we're going to see a lot of number 77 Krupa today. Also on their offensive side and defensive side, I mean, you'll see these guys going both ways, but Michael Barretto is number 72. He's also super tough. I mean, when I watch these guys on film, they definitely, as we say, play to the echo of the whistle. I think Barretto and Krupa probably have some sort of bet on pancake blocks because they will stay engaged with whoever they're blocking all the way down the field. And then on the offensive side of the ball, Coach Finger mentioned their quarterback, Barahabad. And so we saw a lot of him last year. So last year we faced Taft. I think I was doing the game with Tony McHale, and we talked about their rushing attack being sort of thunder, lightning, rain, and sleet because they had four guys that were all capable of toting the ball. Barahabad as their quarterback is one of those. So he's a 6'1", 200-pound senior. So not just a quarterback that can deliver it both with some speed and the boom. And then their running backs, they've got a freshman last year who played against us, Padilla, who was Jaden Padilla, number 3. You'll see a lot of him tonight. He's their leading rusher coming in. And then they also, the last 2 games, introduced another name to the mix, Steven Carrera. So Steven Carrera is number 6. He went last week against Westinghouse. If I have his numbers here, he definitely went over 100 yards. He went last week. He was 13 carries, 119 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he was running a lot of stuff from that sort of the jet sweep prior, but last week against Clark, they even went to a wildcat where they had Padilla in the backfield along with Carrera. The other thing I'd note on Carrera, you'll see him running around out there with a club.
I met his parents at the gate and got the story.
You got the story.
Just a fireworks accident.
Yeah, so the kid, fireworks accident on July 4th, and he blew off his index and middle finger. And, so he's been able to battle his way back, get back on the football field, and he is an electric player. He's sort of not a big dude, so he's, let me get his 5'7", 163, but just runs with a tremendous burst. And if we want to keep talking names on this team, and so last year they graduated a couple guys. They graduated a guy named Isaiah Cruz, who was their top running back last year, who was really tough, as well as a guy named Ryan Porbeski, who was their middle linebacker and a running back. They also have a guy in this team whose name, if you football fans out there, they have a guy, great name. His name is Diesel McFadden. So he's a freshman, and Diesel McFadden is the son of Darren McFadden. McFadden, who was a first-round draft pick of the Oakland Raiders. I think they were in Oakland at the time. Maybe they were in L.A., but with the Raiders played for a long time, and then also played some years with the Dallas Cowboys. So McFadden, I don't think, has been on the field a lot recently, especially with the emergence of Carrera. Definitely a lot of names that we'll be calling out tonight on the Taft side of things, hopefully for tackles for losses that the Dolphins will be delivering. On the Whitney Young side of the ball, there's a few things to note. We talked about some of the injuries coming into last week. So Harrison Gassa lost for the year after the Phillips game. He had a nice catch but went down with an ankle injury. We'll also be without Juan Cepeda again tonight. So Cepeda, a mainstay on both the offensive and defensive lines, as well as Rico D'Alessandro. And then, all year we've been missing Luke Jolich in the defensive backfield and Naz Rankin. So a lot of the freshman talent that's been on the field has definitely continued to improve. So Maxwell Warner at one of the corners, as well as Joseph Gray and Brian Pantoja playing a lot of corner. And then on the mix on the defensive line, while we will see probably a different look with the three-man front, Jacob Mraz is a senior, really played well last week against Westinghouse. So a number of different faces, and then the mainstays, the Joseph Clayton and Alexander Dale holding things down at the linebacker position. Baba Nefesimi Opedele had a outstanding game as usual last week on both the defensive and offensive side of the ball. So we'll see those guys anchoring things. And then offensively and defensively, of course, Anthony Hood, our standout, and trying to get the ball to Anthony in just about any way. He had a nice long touchdown last week. Bennett Newman hit him on a hitch and go. I think that was Anthony's 5th or 6th touchdown on the year. And so definitely always look to get him involved at wide receiver, get him involved in that wildcat position as well. Joseph Clayton, probably his best game as a running back last week. I mean, he had a nice game against Good with a nice long run, but last week very involved out of the backfield. Also caught a couple screen passes, one just amazing 4th down pickup on a screen pass. So we'll see him involved. At quarterback position, you'll see Bennett Newman out there. Like I mentioned, you'll see Anthony Hood. I actually see Alexander Dale warming up right now at QB, and that's something that's been worked on at practice a few times. And I think also it's one of those things about getting your athletic playmakers the ball in their hands and seeing what they can do. Also a little bit of, definitely a windy night here. So hopefully the Dolphins can get a run game established, because it might be a little bit tough to throw in this wind, although it is a west to east wind. So just a crossing wind versus something blowing directly in our faces.
Yeah, it was interesting to see Alex there in the quarterback role. One of the things I took note of during the Westinghouse game was the, lack of touches he had on offense.
Yeah. I think that there were some different looks that we were throwing offensively from the perspective of, and he just threw a nice ball to Anthony Hood right there. So maybe we'll see some of that tonight. You saw some of those shorter routes early. And I think, in the first half there was a struggle. The struggle with 2 interceptions. Newman threw, Hood threw 1 interception. And I'm sure, looking back when I mentioned to Coach Finger, the Westinghouse game, a number of plays that could have gone a different way.
Exactly.
And so some of that was those first half drives. All 3 of those were in Westinghouse territory. So just finishing those things off, a score in any of those things would have put us in a much better position during the game. But that's where we are. So the Dolphins hope to put together a strong end of the season right now. We'll talk throughout the game, maybe a little bit at halftime as well, of where the standings stack up right now. I think, Coach Finger mentioned playoffs in his message today. I think that's probably a bit of a long shot. We'd have to have a couple things break our way. But still plenty of football ahead of us. So the game tonight against Taft. Next week, we travel down to Gately to take on Hubbard. And then there'll be a Week 10 game against a to-be-determined opponent. Coach Finger is asking me about the chain gang. looks like we got the chain gang all set down there. Looks like we got Jack Wildermuth, and Jennifer Newman appears to be on the chain gang tonight. So I know that she has a lot of fans out there right now. She's talking to one of her favorites, talking to Anthony Hood. So I'm not sure what our full chain gang is, but Wildermuth, he's solid down there. We know that things are gonna move in the right direction with Jack Wildermuth on the chains tonight. So maybe I'll steal some of my halftime material as we got the clock running down to 2:50 left before the opening kick. Again this week, while there are a lot of big games in the Chicagoland area, and we're creeping into playoff time here, again, no bigger game in the area than a Chicago Public League game, and that will be Simeon taking on Morgan Park tomorrow. So both those teams come in undefeated overall, and they're both 7-0. Simeon ranked number 2 in the state I think they're in 5A, just behind East St. Louis. And Morgan Park also getting some bunch of votes on the state side of things. So that is going to be a great game. Actually, I'm going to do a quick reference on my notes because I thought it was pretty telling when you looked at what the point differential for those schools were right now. So Morgan Park comes in 7-0 overall, 4-0 in conference. They have outscored their opponents 234-47, so they've only given up 47 points over the course of 7 games. Simeon also 4-0 in the conference, 7-0 overall. They have outscored their opponents 294-62. So 2 just monster Chicago Public League programs that'll be squaring off. Looking over at the toss, looks like the Dolphins won the toss and deferred. So I'm guessing that Taft will want to receive. So Taft will receive, defending the north goal. Captains for the Whitney Young Dolphins, Bennett Newman, number 12. Number 6, Alexander Dale. Number 7, Joseph Clayton, and number 3, Anthony Hood. So Dale, a senior. The other 3 of those guys, juniors. I think we'll have to see. If I had heard that Brandon Bardsma, who is also a senior and had in some of the early games this year, had been handling some of the kickoff duties and punting duties, may be back, although I did see Alex warming up kicking off. So I'm not sure if Bardsma is back. It would be helpful if he is. If not, Alex, as always, will do his job, whatever he's asked to do. Got a little bit of rain coming down here. Gonna see if we can go and cover up some of the equipment a little bit. All right, I think we're back on the air right now. Sorry about that, everybody. We're definitely battling some weather conditions tonight. So I think we might have lost this right out of the gate. So let me do a quick rundown. First drive, Taft, Dolphins were able to force a 3-and-out by Taft. Punt to Hood for a first down. But then the Dolphins were 4-and-out after that, giving the ball back to Taft. So Taft is at the Dolphin, or at their 46-yard line right now with a 1st and 15. They just had a procedure penalty. But more importantly, broke up that pass that was headed to Steven Tanchet.
I don't know.
And Maxwell Warner being on the corner. So the Dolphins, again, shuffled some things around, putting their best cover corners out there. Anthony directing traffic. Abad on the roll. He's going to tuck it and run. Duhan and Tyson Hayes closing in on him, and Tyson Hayes knocks him out of bounds. Although now we're going to get a flag. I wonder if they're going to call that a late hit out of bounds. It was right on the boundary. So we'll have to get that call. It would be a tough one. But dead ball. Personal foul on Taft. So that's on Taft.
Must have been something on the sideline.
Something on the sideline. I'm not sure. We'll talk about some of the history of Taft, the Jim Grabowskis of the world. But, this is a tough program, but maybe some things going on over on the side that pushes them back farther. I can't even do the math anymore now. It's like they're at the 26. But this is where the Dolphins have to absolutely do their job on defense. So that's an inside handoff to Padilla, but he's tackled by Joseph Gray. So nice job, Gray, moving up to that linebacker position. Did a nice job of filling. So Taft with their punt team out. Again, we mentioned Hood's return that unfortunately you didn't see, but what sprung him was an excellent block by Quinn Duhan. So Duhan and Hood are both deep.
They're going to let the quarter run out.
Yep, so first quarter will end here, 0-0 score.
Make sure to stay up to date on Chicago wherever you are by following us on Twitter at CCO Athletics. Interact with our account during today's game. Chicago Publishing are excited to announce
Yeah, hopefully looks like the live stream might be down again.
Goodness.
Let's see, I'm going to give it. All right, it's still spinning here. Looking like we got